Hi, and welcome to Wonkette Weekend Live Chat. I'm Robin Panacchia, and with me, as always, is the lovely and talented Stephen Robinson.
Hello, Robin. How are you?
I am swell. I would be sweller if you guys would click like, share, and subscribe. Um, Hello, all of our people. Feel free to say hello to us. So today we're going to start off talking about this super exciting House Speaker nonsense. Stephen.
So yes, as folks are probably unaware, earlier this week, Kevin McCarthy was the first speaker in history to be ousted after, just in general, but after just 9 months in the position. And He is now still in this. There's still talk of whether he's going to remain in the House. They don't have much of a majority for him to kind of just say I'm done with it all and leave. So now he's like there, but he doesn't get the cool tables and there's a pay cut and it's sort of awkward and he has to see everyone. So um
That's gonna be so like yeah, truly does have to be like the height of awkwardness. Like, hello, fellow coworkers who just like voted me out.
and Republicans have, as typically, and I wrote about this last week, are blaming Democrats for not protecting um McCarthy. And there's no reason to protect McCarthy,
Yeah.
who tried to overthrow the government, um, and who lied consistently to Democrats and lied about their efforts to keep the government open. He tried to blame
Is
them.
that why they didn't protect him and save the country? Like,
Yeah, that was some sort of
really
weird.
dumb, don't you think?
That was
Like,
some weird idea that Kevin McCarthy's job was the basis of our institutions and everything was keeping him in this job. It's like, no, it's like actually, I don't. The idea of the motion to vacate is in itself not a terrible idea. The idea that like generally our leaders are accountable to us, and okay, you have broken your agreements with us. We're going to hold you accountable for that. It's not a terrible thing. Um,
the
and
one person rule though was a little like was obviously not going to end well with
Well, as I was saying, he agreed to that rule.
yeah.
So
Well,
he
that was the only way he was going to get to be speaker in the first place.
Yeah, so he agreed to be speaker under certain specific terms and he broke all of them. And we
Yeah.
can, not to defend Matt Getz, but he basically said, I'm going to only give you, after multiple and multiple humiliating rounds, I'm going to give you if these are the terms. And McCarthy could have said, no,
Yeah.
find someone else. I'm not going to accept those terms. But he accepted those terms and then lied to him. And he didn't just lie to Getz, he lied to then Democrat. He was completely untrustworthy. So that's
Yeah.
why he lost his job. Um, One of the folks, Republicans are very upset with the 8 other Republicans who voted to oust him. And there's talk about some of them losing committee seats and so forth. But um, Nancy Mace from South Carolina, she
Your
was one of them.
favorite. Your
She,
favorite.
she was one of the ones who shivved him on the Senate floor, to borrow from Caesar. And it's funny because back in February she had said this.
Did you watch McCarthy during the Speaker's vote? I know many of you were in the halls of Congress during that vote. I haven't seen someone assume that many positions to appease the crazy Republicans since Stormy Daniels. It only goes downhill from here, people. I mean, come on. But let's be honest. We all knew that Matt Gaetz would never let the vote get to 18.
So I do want to state that we haven't said enough about the comedy stylings
Yes.
of Nancy Mace. You wrote
Honestly, it
something.
wasn't bad. They weren't like as far as jokes go, they weren't bad. The getting to
Mm.
18 one, I.
You've written before about her being too busy having, or maybe it was someone else who wrote about her being too busy having sex to get to a meeting or something. She was talking about
Oh,
how
that would be, oh, yeah.
her fiance wanted to have sex with her, but she's like, "Well, no, I've got to like go to this busy meeting or something." She has her own sort of comedy stylings, it seems. But Mace, I don't know. I mean, the joke that essentially you have a pedophile amongst your wings, or not a pedophile, I should clarify, someone who has sex with underage girls, is not something I would brag about. Like that's one of
Yeah.
your
Well, I mean,
colleagues.
are look at who, like, the main guy in the running for speaker is, like, Jim Jordan, like a dude who was like, they're all upset about grooming and whatnot, but they're like, no, let's have Jim Jordan, of all people, be our speaker.
Yeah, Mace just endorsed him, and Jordan has the endorsement of Trump. So it seems like he's probably going to be the guy. Scalise would normally be your number two, but he doesn't seem to have the grassroots support amongst the crazy team that Jordan does, and sort of
Yeah.
the sense of owning the libs. And I think a lot of the moderates, because there's always the great dream that we see from mainstream Democrats that their moderate friends, their moderate Republican friends, their country club buddies would do the right thing and vote for Hakeem Jeffries. It's like, well, that's never going to happen. Even less so now
Yeah.
because they blame Democrats. So it's sort of like they're like, you are forcing us to back the Jim Jordan and not. So he will be speaker probably very soon. And we're living in a world after the horrible attack in Israel where we actually do need leaders who, not that we're actually necessarily missing the steady hand of Kevin McCarthy right now, but an actual speaker. It's just fascinating in my adult life. Well, there was Tom Foley, but after Tom Foley, is the Democratic speaker has only really been Nancy Pelosi of the past 30 years. And then
Yeah.
and since then, like since 94, it's been a parade of awful, pathetic men, right? So Gingrich, Hastert, a literal pedophile, and Boehner, who's kind of embarrassing, and then Paul Ryan, and now McCarthy, and then Jim Jordan, who it's just one of those things where they talk about what women have to do, no matter what you might think politically of Nancy Pelosi from either the left or the right, or if you're, I know mainstream Democrats adore her. I think she's been very successful at what she set out to do. She is incredibly good at her job in the
Yeah.
sense of actually being able to count votes,
And
which
corral people. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
the thumbnail for this is McCarthy saying, "I'm optimistic about a vote he was about to lose," which is just like, just count the votes. There's only like it's not that hard. Do I have enough people? But he was profoundly bad at his job.
He was doing The Secret, though.
that is I there's nothing I resent.
I'm definitely going to win this. Then it'll happen.
Every ounce of my Vulcan blood so resents magical thinking and wishing for things to happen. Like I can't bear it. I do the Spock eye roll every time. It's like, what? Okay. But yes, Pelosi was very impressive. Pelosi, there's actual legislation that was passed that actually helped human
Yeah.
beings in the world. And I just like, what Gingrich and through McCarthy, what have these men ever actually contributed to the world? But maybe that's the story of Republicans versus Democrats in general. And it doesn't matter. Like half the country still doesn't care that they are so bad at this. So
No, they're actually in fact very okay with them being bad at this because they don't like government and therefore do not want government to work. Like that is, and not in the way that I don't like government. It's like the whole thing is they're trying to, a lot of these Republicans specifically do want to just like throw a wrench into things. They do want to shut down the government. They do want to, like, say, let's set the whole thing on fire if we don't get what we want, because we also don't care about setting the government on fire, because that's kind of one of our goals. Like,
Yeah. I want to go back to this thing about, because you mentioned it as well, about like having it only be one person to trigger the motion to vacate. My sense is that in theory, that's not a terrible idea. It's only if you have no control over your caucus, because if Cory Bush had produced a motion to vacate against Pelosi, she would have lost. Like
yeah,
it would have been tabled immediately. Pelosi would have had the majority to over at any time in her speakership. She would have known I have a majority of support, and especially, and if I have to go wrangle it before, and I would actually use the full 2 days as opposed to um, McCarthy's like, yeah, I don't want to wait 2 days. Let's just get it
yeah,
over with, and there would be known repercussions if you did do it. I mean, that's probably the big difference between Democrats and Republicans in the sense of if you had tried to out, you would lose, you know, a committee. And you have no support from the party when you try to run again. You get primary to be over. Whereas with Republicans, I mean, the the base supports it. So essentially, what this reflected was that McCarthy didn't have support from his base, from his
yeah,
wackadoodle caucus. And this is again a sense of what's being set up now is we're no longer having that illusion that we need to have the sort of McCarthy frontman. It's now going to be Jim Jordan. Um, I wrote about this as well. People on specifically the right, never Trumpers from Max Boot, who the hat guy. I don't know why
yeah.
you really don't like the hat guy. You had a whole thing about his hats, uh,
Yeah,
but Max Boot and Matt Lewis were upset. Um, Many sort of misapprehensions there. One being that um, Ukraine is at risk now because we lost McCarthy. He was open to it. There was no reason to believe that McCarthy would keep his word, number one. And two, if he had narrowly survived, he would have been more inclined to do whatever the anti-Ukraine far right would have wanted. And so, of course, that would have been one of the first things he, asked. There's no
yeah,
reason to believe that that this was going to be in the best benefit. And I do believe that McCarthy was from the era of the sort of seemingly banal
yeah,
Republican. So he goes on, and I do think that's why so many of the moderate Democrats decided to vote against him was when Hakeem Jeffries showed them McCarthy lying and
yeah,
blaming them for the government shutdown. But he didn't do it on Fox News. I actually think if it had been on Fox News, they would have been like, who cares? But it was on Face the Nation. It was
yeah,
on the stuff that the quote unquote normal people watch, maybe some swing voters. And it's like this guy can look normal to swing voters and lie. He's still somewhat of a threat to us.
yeah.
Jim Jordan's a loon, and Jim Jordan's going to be on those mainstream shows. He's going to be a loon. The Speaker of the House is going to be a loon. So, for good or for ill, I disagree with the idea that politically it's bad for Democrats. I think it's actually good to have like this
No,
is
it's
your
not.
party.
Well, they really had, like, quite frankly, no choice, because he was lying to them. He would, he'd say like, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and then not do that. And he wasn't. He actually was not the model of the non wackaloon right. Like, he just kept trying to appease the wackaloon right and didn't do a good enough job of it. Like, but he didn't make anything not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been on the I'd rather deal with the loons. They actually believe something. Jim
Yeah.
Jordan believes things. They're terrifying. Martin Luther Green believes things. They're terrifying. But people like Nancy Mace and Kevin McCarthy are more dangerous, at least Stefanik. They're more dangerous because they don't believe anything. They just want power, and they will say whatever it takes to get power.
Yeah.
So um, when Martin Luther Green is all in on Trump on January 7th, that's just because she believes she didn't actually look at focus groups. She didn't have any polling. It was like he's my guy.
Yeah.
And that didn't matter. Where the others are more
Calculated.
calculated, they're dangerous, and they look like, okay, well, I'm gonna go where the party is, and it doesn't matter. And they're the more dangerous folks. So um their being phased out is arguably good, and we just get the folks who don't even have any sort of political calculation or ability. But it's obviously dangerous. It's dangerous that you have a political party, half the nation that is just completely deranged. You, this guy on Greg Gutfeld on Fox News had his whole rant about needing a. These guys are always talking about a civil war.
Oh yeah.
Always very wealthy millionaires gonna, like in the original Civil War, have poor people fight this for them. And you wonder, like, what are you complaining about? You're so rich, you're so well, but there's a sense, you just watch it and he's talking so upset, and you just think, like, I guess, when has a majority of white people ever supported multiracial democracy, like in any sense of, like, where there's women voting, there's people of color voting, and we have to, like, we can't oppress anyone, everyone's equal, like essentially what America is, in the trailers. But then you get to the movie and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually all the good stuff was in the trailer. Wait a minute. Oh my God. This is terrible. Um, and so but all they want is a sort of imposing their will on other people. It's sort
Oh
of
yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, that's like their source of self-confidence. They're like, basically more or less middle school bullies. Like they want to get to be shitty to people and then have those people still think they are cool. Like that is to them like the ultimate, proof that they are, they have the power that they want to have. Um, which is, not especially normal, but yeah, no, they are. It's as far as the Civil War stuff goes, I think that they desperately do, like, because we're not fighting a war to keep them. Like, I'm so not one of those people who's like, oh, let the South go, because there are obviously like good people in the South. But at the same time, no one's going to be like, oh, I'm taking up arms to keep you around, Greg Gutfeld, because you're just so
mhm.
precious to me. Like, that is absolutely for no reason happening ever to anyone. Like,
Yeah, but they believe your presence is oppressing them, and so
yeah,
their sense is that they have to fight against you. It's very, I mean, it's not sort of the Godwin's law. You're not comparing them to Nazis. It is just that Nazis share certain traits. So the groups that have to destroy other groups have that trait of the existence of others is a threat to them. Or, like, again with the Nazis, the idea is like, okay, well, we'll repress the Jews, we'll send them out of the country, but oh, wait a minute, they might be real mad and
yeah.
come back to get revenge on us. So now we can't let them go. We need to kill them all, which is horrifying, but also was very similar to what L. Frank Baum, the author of Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz, said about Native Americans. It's like, yeah, we have no choice but to exterminate them all because of what we've done to them,
Yeah.
because they will want revenge. So I think
Well,
that's
that's
the sort of
always been,
viewpoint.
the impetus for oppression in general, because the big fear is always, well, once we like let this group of people be equal, they're going to be mad and they're going to take their revenge out on us. And it's why you always hear these people like crying about, oh, reverse racism. Oh, it's so hard being a straight white man because everyone hates us and everything. And like the big fear is always they're going to turn around and do to you what you did to them, and they are now just generally pretending that that is what is happening in their lives, even though no one could give a shit.
Yeah. So Hillary Clinton had mentioned over the weekend about how uh, certain more obsessed Trump supporters would need to be
Oh,
deprogrammed, which is probably not the best wording.
they're
I
so
think
fragile.
I'm sorry.
They're so fragile. Like,
Yeah, maybe no one likes being called a cult, even when they're in a cult. So now it's sort of I think Donald Trump Jr. Was talking about how you have to vote for Republicans because if you vote for a Democrat, you're voting for someone to take your conservative uncle into re-education
Yeah,
camps.
oh yeah, the re-education camps. Yeah, there were a bunch of tweets I saw like, "See what we told you? They were gonna put us in re-education camps all along." Like, please, we barely. No one thinks you people can learn. Like, that's not.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also sort of, and it all goes rooted in this lie. So when Hillary Clinton referred to deplorables during the campaign, she specifically was saying the racist, overtly sexist Trump supporters, most of them at the rallies. And this is stuff that even the Times was showing of like horrific stuff going on at those rallies that Republicans at the time, this is during the primary, were calling out. So Rubio, Cruz, they were seemingly horrified. So quote unquote Republicans at the time was like, yo, this is a very dangerous movement that's occurring. And then they all sort of left Hillary hanging when they're like, okay, well, he's clinched the nomination and we need these people to win. So now you're just insulting all of us. Now you're insulting
Yeah.
all Republicans and half the nation, which was never the case because you're talking about Trump had like what, 30 to 40% of the vote during the primary. And then she said half of them. So she's actually talking about maybe like 20% of your party is racist and sexist. And that's kind of true. But
That's a
at best,
low estimate.
yeah. And but then that suddenly became 100%. No, it's not the case. It's like, I'm sorry, like Elise Stefanik, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, every one of you who said Trump is a racist and a sexist, and then, oh, well, he's got the nomination, I'm going to vote for him. And now you're all offended that you're now being lumped with these bad people because you went where the party is. As I think someone wrote at the time, that was true of a lot of the Nazis. There were just people who were like, what? There are people beating up Jews and whatever. All right. Okay. Well, I can't have the communists come in. So of course, let me just put the badge on, but I'm not that type of Nazi. I'm not going to but I'm just here for the party. No, you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
You are what enables them to do Nazi shit. And that is, you hold, I would say, even more accountability, because if it was just the mouth breathers at the Trump rallies, and there were, like Lindsey Graham said, people were afraid that Trump was going to lose horrifically because it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough support, and instead it was like the suburbanites and the Bush voters and the Romney voters were like, "Hey, well, look, we gotta get rid of healthcare." It's like we support racists and sexists, but only for the most important reason, to make sure poor people don't have health care.
Yeah.
We're not monsters, Robin. It's just very important to us that rich people get a tax cut and poor people have no health care.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's an emotional argument, really.
And we need to ban abortion. That's really important. I'm working on something for tomorrow about in Virginia, and it turned out to not be a huge number of people who got purged from the voters roll, and it was sort of like an oopsie. It's like, oh, we're just getting rid of felons, but some of them weren't actually felons.
Yeah.
And there's been studies. So Glenn Younging is very emphatic about trying to gain total control of both chambers in the upcoming election next month. And he believes once that happens, he can then move forward with his 15-week abortion ban.
Yeah.
And he claimed, he's had all these focus groups of exclusively women who are kind of like, seems like 15, that's the magic word or number for people to agree upon and to surrender their rights.
Poorly informed people.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's their, they believe that is a number that will allow people to surrender the right to their, of their people who they live with and so forth. And so that will pass. And it will be because Virginia right now is like the one southern state that doesn't have really draconian abortion policies. And I think that really makes him very unhappy. So he wants to hopefully win the Senate. They have the House and they have the governor's mansion. They just need the Senate, and if they get it, they'll do that. So he's trying to think, and he believes that 15 weeks will prevent um, the sort of post-Dobbs turnout surge that we saw
Yeah.
in Wisconsin and other states. Um,
Which
you,
I don't think will happen, quite frankly, because I actually do think it is too widely known and understood, like actually now more than ever, because there have been so many people coming forward and saying, "Hey, I've had like a problem with my pregnancy, and now I can't get an abortion that I need to save my life." And that's actually becoming way, way, way more close to common knowledge, I would say,
mhm,
than it was before. Like why people get abortions later on in their pregnancies. Um, and I absolutely do think he is still gonna, very much regret trying to do this, because people are going to come out, because end of the day, like, yeah, they might not want other people to have abortions. They may cherish the idea of women being punished for, being, whores and what have you. But they also know that, like, it could also happen to, like, me or my kid or someone that I care about, and they do want um, those protections for them. And that's why they might
mhm.
say, oh, I'm opposed to abortion publicly, but privately, it's a different matter. And, we do know that a lot of people who are anti abortion in public think that their personal abortion is a whole lot different.
Mhm.
Um, there's a very famous like essay, I believe, from a abortion clinic worker about like the only good abortion is my abortion. It's like from like early 2000s, I think. And it's just all these stories about people who, they oppose abortion, but whoops, theirs is different. And they're always going to have that in the back of their head. So, and that's why I think so many of these are always failing.
Yeah, it is interesting. His focus group is all women because it is an issue. This has always been a battle between women. I mean, obviously there are awful
Yeah.
anti-choice men, but there are more women voters. Specifically, there's white women who predominantly vote for Republicans, and that's been empowering a lot of this legislation and support, especially in certain southern states. And I think they focus on the fact that most polling shows that there's overwhelming support for abortion rights within the first trimester. Then you get majority support for restrictions in the second trimester
Yeah.
and after. And then, as you say, there's not. I'm not blaming Democrats. There's been sort of hiding around what difference between restrictions and because Republicans will say, "Oh no, it's just health of the mother totally and rape and all the bad things after the 15 weeks." And that can create an illusion of, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I think and you've written about this a lot, people don't get that, okay, well, if it's legal and the doctor says, hey, look, this is looking weird, we need to like act now, is different from I'm going to lose my license and go to
Yeah.
jail.
And this is the thing, we
And
don't
that means
want
I've made
doctors
you die.
to have to, sit and worry like, oh, is this gonna, is saving this person's life going to go wrong for me? And that's what we've seen happen. Like, even, you'll see all these Republicans in these states saying like, oh, well, we actually do have exceptions for life of the mother, and the doctors are the ones that are getting it wrong. But, that it's a very subjective thing. If there's going to be a difference between a doctor's opinion on whether or not this is going to save someone's life and like a random, Senate Republican who is probably going to have a very different take, or a judge or someone like that. Like that is, you know, we don't
Yeah.
want. Part of the reason why we do say no restrictions is because we want it to be a decision between the doctor and patient. That's who should be in charge there, not anyone in the government.
It is also, it seems as if because of those uh, anti-abortion laws that's so
Mhm.
draconian. They're actually giving the fetus more rights than an actual child would have.
Oh yeah,
Because it's like my mother and son were in a car accident, and the doctor can only save one of them and makes a choice. No one is. I could be really upset. My wife could be upset. It's like, no, no, it should have been but he's not going to go to jail and lose his
yeah,
license. It's understood that this happens. Like you in the heat of the moment, and you have to make a choice as to who can live, and
yeah,
that moment is understood. But here it's like, no, 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 they're removing that to the point of like, no, no, I had to like, look, she's gonna die if I don't act. And it's
yeah,
like, well, no, no, you're gonna lose your license, your job, you're gonna prosecute you. And they've been acting upon it. So I do think Democrats, I think it benefits to more actively make this clear. I was reading something about because Kamala Harris is sort of essentially the unofficial point person on abortion, I guess, with um, the Biden administration, and she's been sort of vague about discussing it. She keeps saying that we're just going to go back to Roe. We're just going to go back to Roe. We're not going to change anything. Which is when we want to make a law that's just about Roe, without being very specific as to what, because it was understood what those things were. And there's been debates about how it is politically, because Roe was generally popular. So she just says go back to Roe, makes it safer than saying specifically what she believes or what the
mhm,
administration believes, or to make a case of like, women, pregnant people should have rights to decide about what's going on to their body, because then that's particularly an argument that necessarily wasn't one that Democrats are really advocating for in the safe, legal, and rare areas. So, I'm not bashing the vice president. I know it's difficult to make these arguments, but I think if you're being vague, it's very easy for Republicans to take advantage of that.
yeah. At the same time, if you're actually specific and explain how things work, they also, tend to get weird with that as well. Earlier today, I covered Trump being all like, "Oh, and they post birth abortions are a real thing. They're, that is real," and it is because you know Virginia Ralph Northam was like actually like explained what happens when a child is born that is not going to survive.
Yeah.
And he explained it very clearly in a way that like I think pretty much anyone with like half a brain could understand. And they
Hmm.
heard that as, oh yeah, post-birth abortions are a thing and they just kill babies if the mom doesn't want it. And
Yeah.
that is,
I don't know.
there's no way to make them like respond to things honestly.
Well, I think he explained it like a doctor, which is
Yeah.
dangerous in politics. It can come across as, as Vulcan as I am. I get it. Like it
Yeah.
comes across as too clinical. And you want, and the arguments I'd read at the time was the benefit of a woman speaking about this issue, or someone who has been pregnant, is that
Yeah.
you can put it in a term that's perhaps harder to manipulate because it's being spoken of in a sort of human sense beyond just the medical sense. Of course, you're right. They're going to lie. Granted, I think Trump's sort of statements that women are committing ritual satanic murders of babies and drinking their blood or whatever is just sort of nuts. I mean, that's what we learned in Rosemary's Baby, is that mothers don't do that, even if this is Satan himself, weird eyes.
Like,
I don't know. I remember my aunt or something, like, I think she used to kill that baby. Like, I
yeah.
didn't. She was a lovely
I
woman.
know he didn't. Yeah, no.
It
Uh,
was just like, I
Peter
don't know.
Pan was like, you know what? I think I love him anyway, even with his little hooves. I think I actually like imagined that there were hooves and then there were not hooves.
No, you
Oh,
don't. You don't see it, but
yeah, yeah,
one of the women present talks about his feet, and she does
yeah,
it in a weird way of like, oh my, yeah, like this is a knot, so the hooves and whatever. And my beloved
yeah.
Ruth Gordon's like, because he's like, she's freaking out, and she's like, oh, look at his hair. I'm like, she's like, come on, lady, like he's
I love
amped
her
up.
so much.
Yes, she is wonderful in that. So
And
this is
literally
sort of
everything else she was ever in. Sorry.
it's our perfect Halloween content of Rosemary's Baby,
Yeah.
or men not listening to women. Uh,
Well, I mean, that was actually like, you know, the book itself, the original book was very much about. It was by Ira Levin, who also did the Stepford Wives. So like he, you know,
a hella woke writer, Ira Levin. He's very woke. He really got of these issues of for a man that
yeah,
I think that were very compelling, of the sense of not believing women, the isolation that a woman feels in that situation.
yeah,
It's very compelling, and I just like the idea in Rosemary's Baby that her husband Guy agrees to sell her out to Satan, essentially over coffee. Like during
yeah,
the time it takes for her, because it's the '60s, for
yeah,
her to wash the dishes with Minnie, and
yeah.
he's not there smoking a cigar. They've agreed to sell, like, and not that I, obviously I would not sell my wife out to Satan, but like
Yeah. You
I
need a
don't know.
little more cajoling.
After the first one, I mean, well, can I come back? I
Yeah,
like maybe I need to think about this, but instead it's like essentially
yeah.
over the cigars. Like that sounds
But you
compelling.
know what? You are making a good point, sir. I mean,
Can you please blind an innocent man so I can get this role?
we're gonna have to subtitle this talk. What's your take on Cassavetes? Um,
I love him. He's great because it's a very difficult part, because I think if you play him as overt, he's sort of, you don't see her as stupid for believing him for as long as she does. He's not, but he's a terrible human being, so
yeah.
he has to be played in a way that you buy it, and
Well,
that
I mean, that was also a theme, I think, in the Stepford Wives, because it was like, oh, her husband seems like a super nice guy at first, and like he's not gonna, join these other guys. He's totally woke, and then he's like, maybe I would like a robot version of my
no,
wife.
no, no.
Um,
Sorry for the grosses here, but there's a scene of where he comes back from getting the presentation
yeah,
incredibly turned on
yeah,
by the idea of a
yeah,
robot wife. Like he comes back and he's like,
yeah,
"Come on, I've got," because he's like, "I'm gonna have a robot. I'm gonna have my woman-sized sex doll or something." No, yeah. I mean, as someone had talked about how the Satan and the rape, and she's half asleep, so the story here is that he has to say, "I had sex with you while you were drunk," which
yeah,
is awful anyway, and her back is all sc- you know
yeah.
scarred and ripped
But
up,
clearly not
and
their
he's like,
usual kink,
and
right?
he's like, "Oh, I didn't file my nails." I remember watching this. My mother's like, what's wrong with you? You just what do you bought that? Like obviously Satan raped you. I was like, really? Like that's the only
That's like a hard conclusion to jump to. I
No, no,
will
no. My mother's very like
say.
unexplained scratches on your back. It's obviously Satan rape, according to
I
Elizabeth
mean, what
Robinson.
else could it be? Um,
Obviously, it's a Satan rape, and please leave and get an
wait,
abortion.
either that or it's me. Like, or maybe I am Satan. Who knows?
I don't
I've been
know.
called worse.
That was apparently something that is from my youth. Whenever men would apparently have great sex, the woman is scratching into their back, and that just to me seems painful. And maybe I am just too vanilla, but I just don't want to get scratched. Like that's my thing. I don't have enough problems in my life.
Oh, you're a delicate flower, Stephen.
Sorry, yes.
And
We'd have to like
well,
take
I
take
think
these
we're like,
nails.
Nancy Mace is not signing up for that, Stephen.
No, yes. Nancy Mays, she went to the Citadel, so she is, of course, uh so that was our Halloween diversion of talking about Rosemary's Baby. Only because it's just that is like what the idea that Trump can get in front of people and people want to desperately believe that women are murdering their children that they've carried for 9 months.
I mean, just in general, and we have discussed this before, like the trope of like the evil woman is so 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 deeply ingrained and treasured in almost every culture, like worldwide, like the idea of, I mean, if you go back to like a lot of the like old folk songs, there are so many folk songs about like bitches murdering their babies. Like it's a very popular trope. Um, like specifically like the well below the valley, and where she's, maybe talking to Jesus about all the, babies that she buried because she was like raped by her entire family. Or uh what's the Joan Baez one? Mary Hamilton, where she got raped by the king and then threw the baby in the river and then was going to be murdered. But it's a very very common trope. Like infanticide in general is has always been used as a trope to like show the evilness of women. I mean, there are a lot of different ways that they do that in general. Um, but it's a very popular one. We have the trope of the femme fatale. There's the whole idea of like the virgin whore situation. Like it's either women are entirely pure or they're evil and they're going to murder babies and also your heart. Like
Yeah.
that's how we roll.
Well, that was Rosemary's mistake. Rosemary, but her mistake was that she was not a virgin, so she was a bad Catholic. So that made her susceptible because apparently the devil is not interested in
Yeah.
virgins. Even though I don't, I mean, he's raping these women anyway. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why it
Well,
makes
I mean,
this
like
all rooted in.
that good of a time for the devil, really. Like
It's like
no, I'd like someone with a little bit more experience. Thank you.
yes,
Like,
yes, that's the devil's weird his his weird rulings. So yeah, Trump says all this stuff and people believe him. I think the objection to Trumpism as a cult. So when people get upset when it is called a cult, but yet they pretend that Trump is this brilliant man, is very hard to like. Okay, well, we're calling it a cult because you're like Stephen Miller had said that during the Trump administration, it was a period of global peace and harmony. But
mhm.
I mean, we were alive then, right? Like we were
Yep.
alive then. The Trump, like this wasn't that long ago, and like his clear-eyed realism and his that like that's what like. What are you talking about? Like Stephen Miller, either he,
Well,
I
no,
think
they just lie and assume that most, a bunch of people are just going to like, you know what, you do have a point there, sir. Like they're just willing to go along with it.
well, yes, presenting strength. That's a common Republican nature. So,
Yeah.
like, you aren't projecting enough strength. And the person who projects strength is Donald Trump, who kissed up to dictators and whatever. So it wasn't even by those Republican standards, but it is that root of authoritarianism amongst Republicans, right? This idea that projecting strength is how you maintain peace, but it's not peace because it's not for negotiation it's for dominance. You appear so strong and so powerful, no one would ever dare fuck with you. And that was somehow Donald Trump, the guy who previously was in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
I mean, he was just so manly. I mean, nothing said, what's as manly as like a man with a sprayed hand? I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not even true. Like, I mean,
Not
look,
particularly.
I'm a reasonable person. Like, there's someone who, there are Republicans, and there have been Republicans who I disagree with the projecting strength or whatever, but I disagree with their policies. But I get, okay, yes, they can make a decision firmly, they can process information and whatever. I disagree with the choices they make. That was never Trump. He is completely bananas. Like he was never
Yeah.
stable. He only ever cared about himself. He's like completely, yes, he's scared of birds as
I
a
mean, to be fair, I am also scared of birds. Um,
yes. Well,
sorry,
also Halloween
terrified.
topic, the film The Birds, which is rooted in the fact that
I don't want to be Tippi Hedren. I don't want that for
if
me.
if birds ever turn on you, we are doomed. So it's a wonderful film, Hitchcock film, The Birds, because there's no real reason given as to why birds start attacking. But what's understood is that if they ever did, humans have no defense that won't also kill us. Like if there's no way to kill birds without also killing us.
Hmm.
So it's scary, like because we have no control over it. We essentially live under the mercy of birds.
We do, and they're terrifying, and they could, peck your eyes out, and it'd be a very bad time. True story. As an aside, when I was a kid, I liked horror movies even as a kid, and my mom was like, "Oh, I only like Alfred Hitchcock movies because they could really happen." Guess what? The first Alfred Hitchcock movie she took me to was The
Psycho.
Birds.
Oh, the birds. Okay.
It could really happen, and thus my lifelong terror of birds. Although I
Yeah.
don't, the flapping, it's the flapping. I don't like it. Like I don't want.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly legitimate.
They can
Um,
at you. Ugh, their bug covered wings. They're tiny dinosaurs. Sorry, yeah.
they are. My son loves dinosaurs, but yes, they are scary. Uh, I think more the idea that they're birds at a larger size seems scarier than a giant
Yeah.
lizard. So what do you have going on for tomorrow?
Honestly, I am so tired from going out last night. Like went with a friend to go see The Flying Dutchman, and like that has no intermission. So that was a lot. Um, and we went out a lot before and after. But so I'm probably going to take a nap and then figure out what it is I'm going to be doing tomorrow. How
You
about you?
your opera photos, Robin had gone to the opera, and I saw some of the photos on Facebook, and you looked like you had a great time. It was a great
I did.
ensemble. So
I did.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, actually, I was gonna do an update on Queen Romana because they have taken over another town, the Queen of Canada, because she's my favorite. So you guys might get an update on
The
her.
imaginary queen of Canada.
Yes, yeah.
Canada's a
But
lovely
that's
country.
when you see people just like going along with shit. Like she has these people who are like, losing their actual houses, like their homes where they live, be like because they're not paying their bills because they were like because she's told them they didn't have to pay their bills, and then they keep getting their homes repossessed, and they're like, we don't understand why this is happening. Like I showed them the decrees, and they're just ignoring it. Like,
Those are those are three of my favorite Hitchcock films. Rope is probably my favorite. People are not surprised to hear that, given
I'm not surprised. No.
um, and Strangers on a Train. I really enjoy the Patricia Highsmith book upon which that is based is much darker, and she's amazing. Patricia Highsmith wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley, and is one of my favorite authors. And I think Hitchcock got the rights from her for Strangers on a Train, but I think he kind of was sort of sketchy. Like I think he gave the initial offer came. It wasn't Alfred Hitchcock wants your book. It was just like, hey, you want to? So he got it at a very low rate.
Yeah.
Um, Vertigo, also one of my favorite movies as well, by beloved Kim Novak and Jimmy Stewart. So it was great. So Hitchcock is actually my favorite of all directors. I think that his work, especially, is of basically how you structure a film, how you structure a story. It's amazing, and the diversity of work. I mean, there's creepy
Oh yeah.
stuff like obviously Psycho, but then there's like wonderful tense thrillers like Rear Window, but then also a great fun trifle like To Catch a Thief, which is also still it's just great. North by Northwest, and also they're all wonderful works that you go and see. And tomorrow officially begins, based on my calculations, my annual rewatch of all the Simpsons Halloween specials.
Ah, yes.
So based on I
Um,
do two a day. Is terrified of sharks because he's never actually gotten to any sharks. He got scared by Jaws. I just stay away. Sharks, I have no fear of sharks because I just don't F around where they are.
Well, I grew up in New England. Also have another story about my parents scarring me to death with that, but because my dad was like, "Oh, that's where they filmed." Like I saw part of Jaws, and he was like, "Oh, they filmed that by like where we go sailing," just casually. But no, I actually am also terrified of sharks. Although did have a discussion about this in our Slack chat this week, you and I explained I was personally just internally debating whether I was more scared of sharks or bears. And I think we did settle on sharks because of the added thing of drowning, although it would probably take a bear longer to kill you. So that would be worse. But yeah, sharks, bears, birds. I don't like, yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't like animals, but, I don't want to be murdered by one. And I think that's fair.
That is fair. Stay away from where they are. Don't go into the woods. Don't go into the ocean. Stay in cities. There'll be random coyote or something, but otherwise, just stay away from where they might be. But I mean, I get it. People have to live in like the woods or the kind. I get that. So bears bears are a little scarier, but sharks. I mean, why are you getting involved?
But also so are people who do live in the woods because, what are they up to? I'd rather be murdered in the city than, by someone who lives in the woods and could keep you in their basement forever.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting.
Stan living like under someone's bed in a box. I have to think of these things.
Yeah. I mean, I think Republicans constantly talk about how terrifying cities are, and the New York Times in one of its both sides peaks. Could be something for you to look into if you want to write, or other I can do it, but I think it's worth someone covering. They did something about how some folks in Portland are having to leave because there's homeless people around, and now you don't want to see that, right? And then, also there's some folks in like stations like Iowa, they have to leave because it's illegal for their child to get gender affirming care.
Yeah.
And these are two similar things, Robin, that they are comparing, which it is not. Like, you're being outlawed and forced to leave your state is slightly different from, I don't like seeing homeless people. And look, I get it. I get like a little bit. I get like wanting to, like, you make the choice to leave, but it is a choice, and like it is not like it is in no way similar. And the fact that that the Times tried to present it as such was to me peak New York Times. All right, so thank you again, Robin, and everyone.
Going on for tomorrow. Sorry, I was rude and I didn't ask.
Just the hummus update. The also Bob Menendez's wife Nadine had struck and killed a pedestrian about 2018, and essentially got off the whole thing. She wasn't even tested at the scene for drugs or alcohol, and it's only now coming up because she got a consolation Mercedes. That was one of the bribes. She was complaining.
Why doesn't anyone ever get me a consolation Mercedes?
So she was complaining. She runs over and kills this guy, destroying who rudely ruined her Mercedes in like mid-December. And then like a few weeks later, she is complaining that she does not have a car and whining about it. And eventually, and then she sends a happy text after Menendez interferes in a criminal prosecution. And that person on their behalf sends arranges for her to get a $6,000 Mercedes. And she's so happy. Everything's wonderful because she is so torn up over having killed someone. Even if it's not your fault, I think I would be very devastated by the fact that I killed someone who died instantly. Yeah. It was instant, pretty much. So
that's hard. I don't think I would be, focus on getting a new Mercedes.
She claims at the moment that the person, he actually just leapt into her way. He jumped on he attacked her car. was
Because
her
that's the thing
story.
that people do like regularly. They just like throw themselves into traffic.
So, yeah, suicide by
They
luxury
think we're
vehicle.
like,
If
he
it's
hates this Mercedes. Like,
um, so if there's any somehow justice emerges as a result of her greed, it would be fitting, and I think I would hope to see that. But just her heartlessness, like she's just like, "This is my fault. He ran into my car." Like she's talking about it as if she'd ran over a deer. Um, it like I she's just a horrible human being. The Times had it refers to her as someone who had champagne taste on a beer budget, which I'm sure is a expression that's gone around, but it is uh I was amused by that, but not
I
by
mean,
her
who among us doesn't?
sociopathic behavior.
But that is why the $5 sparkling wines from Trader Joe's exist. They're
Yikes.
actually good. I know. He's like looking at me with horror. Steven is so much bougier than I am. You would think. You would think that I was,
All right. Okay, thank you. Where can
horror on your face.
yes, it's like Fraser Crane saying buffet.
Oh my God, there's new Frasier coming out. So
Yes, I'm
yeah.
very excited for new Frasier.
Oh my
Where
God,
can
you and Jeanette both love the Frasier.
where can people find us, Robin, and what should they do? So you
Oh,
take
you
us
should
first.
like, share, and subscribe. Um, and that's about it, I think.
Like
Also send us money. We like money.
we do, in fact.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll be back next time. Take
Great.
care.
Bye.